Hey, Tiffany, how's it going? Welcome to the Leaders Lab.
Hey, Ken, thank you so much. And hello to everyone listening.
I've been excited to talk with you. I know you've got a big background in coaching and as a SoulCycle instructor and many other things in your background. Do you want to this is our first time meeting, certainly most of our audience first time meeting you. Can you tell us just about your background and how it led you into the career that you're in now?
Oh boy. It's funny you're asking because a prospective client just asked me that yesterday, and I don't really get answered that question
Yeah.
often. And it was a long-winded answer now that I'm recalling.
Well, you've
But
practiced.
really,
You've got a practice run at it now. So this is
yeah.
yeah, there we go.
But my where I am now with Evolve and Self Worth Advantage, it was all a journey of following my journey and my client's journey. So I never set out to start a corporate coaching company or to be an executive coach or to coach founders. It really was just following the yellow brick road to what made me happy and what I was really good at and what really created value and purpose, not only for me, but for the people and companies that I work with as well. And so if we go back a step, I just completed my time with SoulCycle a little less than 2 years ago. And it was the most incredible 10 years of my life. I transformed so much during that time. I never thought I'd be a fitness instructor.
Sure.
Yet, if you know anything about SoulCycle, it's way more than fitness. But in that space, in the beginning of that space, is how I happened upon formalized, structured coaching. It wasn't something, again, that, you know, when I went to college back in the 90s, there was no like get your degree in coaching or
Sure.
your certification. And again, just following, the path and the trail that lights me up. But really, it's been, and I was telling my client yesterday, I've been an overachiever most of my life, and really, the core of that was cover up. It wasn't because anything was expected of me or like that's just who I am by nature. The core of that was me covering up shame that I had around my childhood experiences and who I thought I needed to be or who I thought I wasn't.
So it was
And
around
so,
the external, like I'm going to do all this not because I want to,
yeah.
but because I want to look good, right?
Yes, looking good. There you go. That's one of the
Yeah.
big things we coach people around. And so, it's been the cure and the cause because I've had such a deep and profound experience with feeling like an imposter with this false need to look good and be validated and be the best and the top and compete and dominate. And I'm glad that I had that experience because it protected me in the moments that I was in earlier in life. And it's given me such a useful and topical context to not only, support myself in my healing and transformation, but really supporting, the people that I coach that are at these really high levels
Yeah.
in their life and in career. When people work with me, or even when they decide to work with me, they're either in or out very quickly because I bring myself to the stage, so it's not like your coach is better than you or knows more than you. We don't.
Right.
We just, we have a couple of tools that have a framework or, some methodology behind it. But really it's about my journey and really aggregating and curating all the things that I've experienced and then the education and the knowledge to support getting from there to the place where I want to be and where my clients want to be instead.
I know you're in Miami now. Is that where you grew up?
No, and it's funny. I just told you that I moved. So
Yeah.
now we are in Delray Beach, which is
Okay.
about 45 minutes north of Miami. I grew up in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I'm an Allentown, Pennsylvania girl. We're about 45 minutes north of Philadelphia. So we say sneakers and hoagies where I come from.
Hoagies. Allentown's the old steel town that Billy Joel sang about a million years
Yep.
ago. But um, so tell me about, I'm super curious. Soul Cycle, for anybody that doesn't know it, is kind of when you mention someone like instructs fitness, normally not the resume builder that you talk about on a podcast necessarily. I mean, it's a nice thing to have, but Soul
Mm-hmm.
Cycle is like different level. I mean, Soul Cycle,
So,
nowadays, between Soul Cycle, Peloton, these are the elite of the elite instructors. You were there for what, 9, 10 years. How did you get that gig? What was that like?
ooh, that's a good story.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I had just moved back to New York City in 2012. And a lot of my guy friends, specifically very successful finance bros, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
they were going to SoulCycle and like loving it. And they have like these really rigorous type A lifestyles. And I'm like,
You
you
could
are a
spin.
member of a gym and you spend more money and go to a different place
Yeah.
to do spinning? Like that doesn't make sense to me. And they're like, it doesn't until you go and try it. And so one of my friends invited me, and we sat in the back row. The room was filled, and there were two people, two women in the front teaching. And it's funny, Ken, because I was like hitting my friend in the beginning of the class because I thought there was a video or something you had to watch before you went,
Right.
because everybody's doing the same thing perfectly together. And I'm like,
Right.
what? Was there a film or a tutorial before? I had no
Right.
idea. And so being who I am, and I mean, I could peel back a million more layers. I was like, I want in. I definitely want in. And, I've always been drawn to fitness, not fitness, but wellness.
Yeah.
As I'll be 49, excuse me, I'll be 50 in 6 weeks. So I've always been attracted to my body as my temple, and that made a lot of sense to me. I followed that path. But I just put my name in the hat, and my friend knew the instructor, and the instructor just happened to be one of the trainers who selects the next round of
Right.
trainees, if you will. And when I went to go audition, it is an audition, by the way, and
Sure.
it is a combination of like auditioning, like for stage Broadway, and fitness and some other things. And I didn't even know how to set the bike up, Ken. I didn't know how to clip in, but I knew how to be in front of people. I was very sure and confident of myself because in that former life, that one of the reasons I was in Miami and in New York in the first place, I was a DJ. So I
Okay.
was used to being in front of people and all that. So I went in, I was myself. And, they told me later what really hooked them is, I said I was 37, and they were like, 30. Usually it's like 20-year-olds that
Yeah.
come in for that gig. And they were like, you're older than us. And like, it was just a really cool experience. I didn't get picked, but I got selected and like coached for another month and a half, and then re-auditioned and was given the opportunity.
So they saw the raw skill set. The DJ background didn't hurt at all. Not just from
Yeah.
a public platform, but if you guys haven't been to Soul Cycle, it's like a party on a bike, sort of, right? Like you get your
Yeah.
workout, but the music's intense. I mean, I think the ability. Do you guys? I'll get off of this in a minute, but do you guys pick? I'm just curious now because I've been to several classes. Do you guys like pick your own music, or is that sort of set up and you have to? Okay,
No. Yeah, we do pick everything. That's part of the magic, if you will, of
okay,
SoulCycle. The instructor designs not only just the music, but the class itself.
okay,
And, that was really powerful and really, empowering in a way that was like creative, yet it hit my buttons of like logic and design and, all the things that I love to do. And really, because some people are like, you got it so great. You work like a couple hours a week. You go in, you go out, you work out. And I'm like, do you know how much time and energy and like literal soul that we pour into the music and the design of the class? Because the class has a framework, but you gotta turn it into something based
totally.
on your own style and the kind of people that take your classes. And really, now that I'm thinking back on it, that whole experience was super humbling for me, because as much as I was a go-getter and dominated almost everything I did, I was not one of the top people there. I would say I was consistently in the middle or below.
Yeah.
And that was not a comfortable or, usual experience for me. And again, it was perfectly designed for me. There were so many lessons that I learned and I needed to learn. in order to be who I am today and get really clear on where I'm going. Because, I would go through peaks and valleys on that journey, like show up like a rock star, which is one of their words in their mantra,
Sure.
and like really pour it all in. And then sometimes I couldn't get it together because I was either hyper focused on someone not doing it right,
Right.
or I just was thinking about other things or getting too hyper, analysis paralysis about something in the
Sure.
mix. So very, very humbling
It's funny. I
experience.
had a kind of a similar experience. My wife had been bugging me forever to go to yoga with it. When I say bugging, politely encouraging me to go to yoga, hot yoga. And I never wanted to go. I was always like, no, that's your thing. That's not my thing. And I
Mm-hmm.
went to this self-development seminar and they were talking about probably a lot of things that you guys work on with your clients, just balance, right? I mean, where you are, career versus spiritual versus whatever. And I was like, I bet this yoga thing she's been suggesting, and there might be something to that, right? So I called her from the seminar and I go, okay, I'm finally going to give it a shot, when I get back. And so I went and I loved it, like you at that first day of Soul. And I was like, I'm in. And I did 30 days in a row, which led to like 90 days in a row, which led to kind of a transformation, right? Like 90 hot yoga classes in a row. And then I signed her and I up for teacher training without telling her. Like I just did it. And then because I didn't need a push to be on stage, but she did. But she knew a lot more about yoga. And I sort of knew that if I signed her up, she'd be a great teacher, and she is, and she still teaches to this day. And I kind of thought, like, whatever, it's 25 people in a room. I mean, I've spoken to hundreds of people before. This is not a big deal. But my first teaching those first yoga classes, that combination of having to get the music right and the heat right and the timing right and the sequence right and the blend, the number of spinning plates. Oh, and then you have students that I'm like, oh, I wasn't accounting for someone freaking out during class, or coming in 15 minutes late, or whatever it
Yeah.
was going to be. And it was one of the toughest things in terms of, and it was humbling. And like you, the thing that reminded me of it when you're talking is, I was solid. I mean, I was solid, but I could never, not that it should be a graded competition amongst yoga teachers, but I listen, there's the go-tos, and I don't think I was one of them. And
Yeah.
nor did I really aspire to be. I was sort of like, okay, this is where I fit here, So when
Yeah.
did you I think you started coaching during your time at SoulCycle though, correct?
Mhm.
Where did that come from?
Formally,
Yeah,
formally, I had no idea I'd been coaching like a decade before because again, like it wasn't a thing
right.
that there was a title for it, an organization. There just wasn't. Um, so you were going to, was there a second part to the
Well,
question?
no, just there was a point where it seemed like you did start looking at it as, okay, this is a business now, or this is my
Oh
mission now,
yeah.
right? And when
Yeah.
was that?
I mean, right away, I got again like the universe was guiding me the whole time. I got really lucky, and it was because of the institution that I went to become trained and to receive my certification. And I said this to the prospective client yesterday too. What really set apart my training, which I still am in, there's no like you're done,
Yeah,
chapter over. If you're a professional high level coach, the place that I went, I also had to be coached in the same framework that I was learning as well. And I tell you what, and that's one thing I like, we'll go back and map it to Soul Cycle. What I really loved is you got to ride those. It wasn't about just learn and let us train you to teach. It was learn, go take classes, learn, go take somebody else's classes, learn, go take somebody. It was like beautiful to be in the experiencer
right,
or the receiver seat, if you will, as well. And it was the way, and the just if anybody's listening, if you want to know, it's called Health Coach Institute. Carrie Peters and Stacey Morganson are the founders of that, but I think it's now scaled up into something much bigger. Yet I started with them in 2016, and that year I received my first formal certification. But it was immediate because those two women were like, "We could teach you this all day." Yet doesn't really mean much if you don't go create it and
Right.
make it happen with clients.
Right.
Because you can know all this stuff, but if you're not attracting and supporting people through a transformation, it's like
It's just
reading a good
knowledge.
book
Yeah.
or taking a course and not doing anything with it. So that was integrated into our training as well. And I have to say, I'm super grateful because that journey of being, becoming an entrepreneur in this realm, if you will, there's so many things that building in that context, my personal context that I support high level C levels with and high level founders with. I
Right.
get it. I'm like, oh, you're running a business. It's not just about how good you are being an expert, but there are numbers, there are logistics, there's operations that we are also responsible for. It's
Sure.
not just about delivering great service and getting great reviews and getting referrals or whatever that may be. So it's more comprehensive. And I'm very grateful that I decided on that program because there was another one out in New York City that was shinier and fancier and sexier that I know a lot of people went through. And I have to say, everybody I know who's gone through that program is not they aren't in
Yeah.
business, if
Almost
you will.
nobody comes out of coaching training with any kind of entrepreneurial training or sales training, or
Mhm.
it's just sort of like, okay, I have all this knowledge. Now they try to make some Facebook posts or whatever, but that's about it, and it's
Yeah.
yeah. So what did that look like early on for you? What did client acquisition? Who did you decide to target, or
Yeah.
what your niche was going to be? And did that change over time?
Yeah, well, that goes back into what had me go into their program. So going back to SoulCycle, so what a beautiful way to start this. Um, I was relocated. So I was in New York City and I was offered a relocation opportunity, which I could not turn down because, Michelle Obama taking your class. I'm like, yes, sign me up. I do want to go to Washington, D.C.
That's cool.
But quickly when I landed there, I had no community except for the Soul Cycle community. And I was about to be 40. I was like a month away from being 40. And so everybody in the Soul Cycle community was either, a stranger in the beginning or they were in their 20s because they were in that young, the front desk
Yeah.
staff and so on. And so I felt really lonely in the beginning. And so I started talking and just sharing. And I'm like, and thinking, what else could I do or create or be part of that will leverage this Soul Cycle thing? Because I was not leaving. It was so amazing to be a part of. And so it just occurred to me, or maybe Facebook or Instagram was listening and they started sending
Yes.
me
Pushing the
health coaching
algorithms. Yeah.
ads. Yeah. And so I found Health Coach Institute and they had like a informational like session or whatever. And I went and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. And again, the way the program is designed, you're doing both at the same time. You're learning and you're building your business. And they had an event and in Las Vegas, they do 2 events a year. And I went to that event very early in my training. And that event was so energizing and inspirational and full of like all the light bulbs and the juicy nuggets. 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, I hosted an event and the only people I knew were my Soul Cycle people. So I invited them and I signed 2 clients at that event.
Nice.
Like for $2,000, like not for like $150, like it
Sure.
was like the thing. And I was like, oh, this is real.
Yeah.
And then I just kept going, following their framework, going. And that's it. So I would say Soul Cycle was my big business development pipeline in the beginning because they were seeing me 5 times a week. It was the right audience. Um, and then think about they're not just there for their health and wellness, they have a job.
Right.
So they are the ones who, like I said, I was not like, let me start a corporate coaching company and, develop leadership development content. That was
No.
not what I thought.
But most of the Soul Cycle community are professionals. Yeah. I
Yep.
mean, I got to think average age is
100%.
40. Probably
Mhm.
half of them own their own businesses. If they don't, they're making a couple $100,000 a year or more. I mean, these are $50 a pop fitness classes. It's not, yeah, it's gonna
Yeah,
attract a
no
certain kind of
membership,
clientele. Yeah.
no discounts, no
No.
membership
I
to
think I got
like,
10% for being part of Equinox once they got bought. That was about it.
oh,
So something really small, like it was a super small discount.
yeah.
So now you've got like a team and you guys are doing events. Like talk to me about the evolution, not just of the business, like, oh, we went from here to here to here, but what did what did you have to learn? Because I'm guessing when you went into this and you seem like, and maybe I'm getting it wrong, but you've mentioned the universe a few times and you do seem like a person who kind of looks for signs and clues and kind of like, okay, hey, universe, if you're presenting this, I'll walk in this direction, right? So I'm guessing, again, maybe incorrectly, that you didn't go into this going, oh, I'm going to scale a 7-figure blah blah blah. I think it was just sort of one thing after another, right? But can you walk us through
Yeah.
how you went from SoulCycle instructor, part-time coach, to now having a team, having a
Mhm.
really nice office that I can see behind you right now? Like, what did that look like? Because it hasn't been really that many years, right? Like 8 years since you had your first client.
Yes. And by the way, this is the co-working space in my new building.
Well, it's
So
nice.
not artificial. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a great question. Because it's important for also leaders and founders to know it's not an instant thing. And the word that popped up, Ken, when you were like asking this question was consistency. And really, it's one of the biggest things a lot of us overlook is consistent effort. Because if you're like me, you want it now, you want it fast, type A, or just like overachiever, you like great results, you have confidence, all that jazz. It's We're so used to the high highs that we forget there's so many micro steps that lead up to those high highs.
Yeah.
Um, and so the evolution, and I love that you use that because that's why we called the company Evolve.
Oh, cool.
Because even when you hit your target, which is how we coach people, we create a target together. That's what we aim for. When we hit it, there's usually something next more ahead. And so in that evolution, it was really staying in the training for 3 years because it is a 6-month program. But I was like, I know I don't want to say I didn't trust myself, but I knew I wanted the full experience. I wanted to go all the way with this.
Right.
And I knew 6 months was not enough to just learn something and then go build a business off of. So all of my entrepreneurs and my founders out there, keep going. You get to be a student of all of this,
Yeah.
whatever this is, whatever industry or game you're playing. But it was really, I kept putting myself first and not like put Tiffany first, but I put myself in the hot seat first. Oh, I want something more. I want something next. I had to look inside and really take a look at what's going on with me and how my internal thought process is handling that, how I navigate through that. Because one of the biggest obstacles I faced very quickly, which I'd been facing my whole life, is I had a breakdown or a misalignment with money and wealth. And so I had no idea this whole time I'd been sabotaging myself. Once I hit like a certain level, and that level changes depending on where I am in my journey. But once I hit a certain level, I don't accrue or earn more because, and I do, but I don't keep it.
Yeah.
I start spending it because I'm like, oh my God, this is too much money for someone to have. Like, who needs all this? And this is silly. Or I would think I got to invest in my company, invest, invest, invest. And so the journey also, I was in SoulCycle until 2.5 years ago because that really was the pipeline. So I never
Okay.
really transitioned out. What I did was I lessened the workload there. So I would only teach, I started off teaching like 12 or 15 a week. And then that got lower and lower, where in my last 2 years, I think, or 3 years, I was only teaching 2 classes a week,
Okay.
because I just needed to stay in the pipeline, stay in the groove. Plus, it was great for my own health and wellness to stay in the groove. But I also found another community and another modality, if you will, called transformational leadership. And that's when things started to really accelerate and amplify because that was such a confrontational look at me. I thought it was going to be a business, business development workshop where we're working on how to scale our business. And immediately on day one, the trainer came in and she was like, put your computers away. You can put your backpacks and your briefcases to the
Right.
side. And oh boy, did we take a look at it. I mean, we went all the way back to when we were born. It was wild.
Yeah.
And really, again, with the type of people I support at their high levels, this is what's needed.
Hmm.
Because when you get so high in life and so accomplished in life, you forget the beginning, you forget the beginning steps, and you forget to be a beginner. You are still a beginner.
Right.
Once you reach the next level, you are a beginner.
Beginner at that level. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's, and I fell down many times along the way. But it really just went from that to I'm now, I started off a health and wellness coach, then a lifestyle coach. I don't really know what that meant at the time, but I knew like health wasn't really the path. And then I became a leadership coach because now my clients were receiving extraordinary results. And they were like, I want you to come in and do a workshop for my team, or I want you to come in and run our offsite or run our leadership retreat. Or, I want you to be our guest speaker for our all hands. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's different. And so now I just started following that thread. And it was one client that tipped me over, who brought me into his Fortune 100 company. Again, he took my classes at SoulCycle,
Nice.
and I was doing like a PhD thesis for that other body of work. Brought him in as one of my, because I needed to present my work live in front of an audience, and I invited him because I wanted his feedback, and he just was blown away. And
Nice.
when he moved to take his new position, he invited me to lunch, and I thought it was just a goodbye lunch. And he was like, I would like to hire you as my coach. And I'm like, oh, you are like a top level executive at a very well-known company. So I had my little imposter moment for like 1 second. And I was like, okay, tell me more. What exactly do you want to work on? And from there, he brought me into their organization on their formal executive coaching roster. And then that's really what was the real
Yeah,
tipping
that
point.
sort of coined you like, okay,
Yeah.
now it's official, right? Like you've got the
Yep.
business, you've got the credibility, you've got the backing. I think it's so interesting when you were talking about like getting into this and looking at your own, I'm paraphrasing, but sort of like the money wounds, because I've
Mm.
gone through that myself, and I've gone through it more than once because as you mentioned, like you're a beginner at each level. And if you forget that, you won't get out of that level. In fact, you might be sent back down to the other level, right? Like it just might happen that way.
Absolutely.
But you'll never evolve to something or stay there. You might touch on it, but you won't stay there if your identity hasn't changed to match your blueprint. You know what I mean? It's like, if I don't think I'm a $300,000 guy really in my head, there's very little chance of me hanging out in a $300,000 income bracket for very long, or 100,000 or whatever number, someone wants to put in there. Right. And of course there's the skill set and all of that that's needed to earn that. But assuming someone has that, it's like, yeah, if it doesn't match up here, it's not going to match there. And it's funny where that stuff comes from. It's not, I don't know what you learned, but for me, it did. It went back to childhood. It went back to us not having a lot of money. It went back to the repetitive statements that turn into wiring in your brain, like money doesn't grow on trees. We're not really college material, like that kind of thing. And it's like that becomes a mantra, like a negative mantra.
Yeah.
But until you change it, it's there.
Yeah, and it's so interesting when you said that $300,000 guy, because there are some other level clients that I work with who found me different ways. And I support them with landing the role of their dreams. So it's
Right.
not like your job, because jobs or whatever, but like the role, like what you want to do. And when it comes down to the compensation and really putting it together, designing it, a lot of them get tripped up at that stage, because this was done to me. Like, how much do you want to make in your business this year? And the instant coaching I received, double it. So
Right.
imagine when someone hears that, they put their package together and their coach says, double it. They, all the color
self-doubt.
flushes from
Yeah.
their skin. They're like sweating. And I'm like, we're in a coaching conversation. We're not in action right
Yeah.
now. We're just in our session. And so, and it's beautiful that that happens in a coaching session because there's something there that is getting in your way. And if you weren't aware of it, then it was in your blind spot. So bravo for, pulling something out of the blind spot up into your awareness. And then second, these things, they permeate out into the other areas of your life
Right.
because it is, the bigger piece that we're talking about is scarcity. And if we are not scarce with our money, we are scarce with our time. I'm so busy. I don't have enough time. I got all these things I need to do. And then we're scarce with our compassion, our love,
Right.
our curiosity. We start to get like in these like little like tight, limited bubbles or
Yep.
silos, if you will. And so I see this when I'm brought in to coach a team or to coach a leader and they're running a team and then I get to meet their team and I'm like, yep, I see the scarcity all over the place here.
Yeah.
And it's not bad or wrong, but it's something to definitely address and take a look at because there, money gets in everyone's way, even, the wealthiest or whatever. And, you could talk to them too. Money doesn't buy you happiness. Like,
Right.
it still didn't get me what I wanted. And that's such a great lesson that a lot of us still don't receive. We intellectually know it, but we don't receive it.
Right.
And yeah, so the whole money thing is a really beautiful and really powerful place for all of us to look at and continue looking at.
Yeah. Well, like you said, I think it's tied back to other aspects of your self-worth, other aspects of fear, right? So if it's showing up there, it's going to show it, like scarcity in general, right? It's all tied together. I'm curious, is most of your time, it sounds like most of your time is still spent one-on-one clients or like what's the mix right now of like
Oh, Ken,
retreats, groups, one-on-one? What does that look like? What's a week in your life look like?
That is such an, oh man. I'm just going to share it because this is the actual reality. We are going through a transformation internally right now where I am stepping into the digital space.
Yeah.
So what that means is courses, content, videos, things like that. So yes, delivering speaking engagements, of course, one-on-one coaching, and team. I call it team transformation. But I'm spending a lot of time digitizing because the first round of it needs to go through me
Yep.
because it's my proprietary work. Because just last year, no, in 2023, we are in 25 now. In 2023, I created a new approach called Self-Worth Advantage, which just the first layer of it is for leaders and founders, but we're going to roll that out into Self-Worth Advantage for relationships and
Sure.
for, parents and all these things. But so I'm in front of this computer a lot more than I'd
Mhm.
like. And that's one of my goals for this year is to be in person. So anyone listening, if you ever come into a sales or a business development conversation with me, I'm going to heavily enroll you into doing it in person. I am ready. My team is ready to come out and deliver work in person. But yeah, so it's probably 30% delivery and 75%, which is really what I'm saying is I've been working a lot more than I
Yeah.
used to because of all this time we're spending putting these things into e-learning and all the things that go behind the
But it
scenes.
sounds like that's kind of like you said, a transitionary period that coming out on the other side will allow you guys to scale the business a bit through digital and then sort of
Yeah.
handpick what you want to do one on one because there's only so many of you, right?
Yeah,
And so
and
many
the
hours.
work, the feedback I've been receiving, the work seems intimidating or like very overwhelming. It's a lot to take in. And so the way I've designed it is so that it's lighter touch where you don't need to be with me. You could
Right.
just experience some of these things in a workbook or a guide or a course, something like that. But absolutely to scale. And for those viewers, if you're listening and you can't see my face, the digital stuff got me, Ken.
Yeah.
It got
Yeah.
me.
You looked a little bit
I
like,
fell down a few levels
yeah.
in my self-worth and my like the whole scarcity. I fell back into a lot of old patterns doing this.
It's funny how when we're under stress, how some of that old stuff kind of that we thought handled, that we had handled, right, kind of peeks its way back up a little bit. Yeah, you did look like as soon as I asked that question, you went, "Oh God, like
Yeah.
I'm right in the middle of it right now."
Yeah.
So, is the best way for people to get in contact and work with you? What's that like? Do they find you on LinkedIn? Do they go to your website? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, the best way is to either email me, Tiffany at evolveeq.com, but I'm on LinkedIn almost every day. I absolutely adore LinkedIn. I'm one of their top voices, so I'm always contributing there as well. And then you could also find us at evolveeq.com or at selfworthadvantage.com.
Tiffany, it sounds like you guys are doing an amazing job in the space. I can literally feel like your passion for it. And I think it comes from, I think it comes from a cool place where I think I talk with a lot of coaches and a lot of really good ones. And there's nothing wrong with people strategically going, oh, my next career is going to be X. And, they go from being a banker to now they're a coach. But I really like the, I guess, authenticity or natural path that it seems like your life experiences kind of led you here, like you were saying earlier. You know what I mean? Like being a SoulCycle instructor is being a coach for sure. I mean, you guys are motivators, you're inspirers, you create a great environment. That leads to the next thing, leads to the next thing, now leading to the digital thing, which is going to allow you to reach a lot more people. So super cool. Really
Yeah.
good to meet
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You as well, Ken.
Cool. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone listening.
I will see you.